Hey guys, Dov here, back with another unit to highlight. And by the way, if you're enjoying the series, I would much appreciate if you gave the video a like, gave me a sub. If you're not subscribed already, help share this knowledge, get it to more people. But today, here we are, Wood Elves versus Dwarfs. Potentially a tough matchup for the Wood Elves. Let's take a look here. Wardancers are going to be the subject of today's video, but we've also got a Grey Eagle, Ancient Tree Man, who's getting lit up right now by cannons and organ guns. Got some Wildwood Rangers up front, also getting wrecked by the organ guns. Oof. Regular Tree Man. And yeah, just an infantry rush, basically. It does have some Wild Riders vanguarded out to the flanks as well. And for the Dwarf army, gone with sort of defensive, shoot-back type build. Bugman's Rangers, very good in this matchup. Regular Rangers. A lot of artillery, maybe a little bit too much, but cannons, organ guns. Ulthar's Raiders here, also hidden in the woods. Pretty decent stuff, but Wood Elf, I apologize, don't remember your name right now. We'll see it at the end, but Wild Riders charge in here. They get a really nice charge, but so back to Wardancers in general. You can see as the Wood Elves take shots on their advance here. Not a situation they're necessarily used to, but that Tree Man's getting absolutely lit up. The Wardancers here are a really interesting choice. You would think maybe not that great against the Dawi. Yes, they are anti-infantry, but they're relatively squishy, and also non-armor piercing damage, right, quote-unquote. But against Rangers specifically, there's a few things going on here. The high DPS versus low armor, obviously. The Rangers here, Bugman's Rangers, taking a big charge, and before they can clean up, heal, rather, too much of their HP, they're going to get cleaned up by these Wardancers. So very good against the Rangers specifically, and since Bugman's and regular Rangers, kind of that missile spam is so common in this matchup, I really like to pick specifically to counter there, and more than that, they are 46 speed, which is very fast for infantry. Infantry speed is one of those things that's hard to quantify, but in specific situations is super powerful. Here, Grey Eagle and those Wild Riders get a nice dive, start to disrupt the artillery crews here. Frontline engagements, very atrocious. You can see it's just an absolute bloodbath. Whoops, smacked the mic a little bit there. It's fine. Wildwood Rangers are trading okay, but they're taking a lot of damage. They have potentially very good DPS output, but they're very squishy. Same can be said of Wardancers. I guess this really could highlight both of them here, but this Wardancer's already chased one Ranger. He's going to notice in just a moment, start to come clean up this other Bugman's Ranger here. This one, if we check in, up to 36 kills, chased a couple of units off already. And that speed against the Dwarfs can be very key. Using them kind of almost like you would like a demi-cavalry unit, or like hounds almost, to like clean up those light squishy Rangers. Wildwood Rangers, with the Treemen here, should be able to hold a decent amount of time. Eternal Guards also actually trade okay against Dwarf Infantry because of the decent armor piercing damage. They are very squishy, but it is what it is. They have enough melee defense to usually shrug off the low melee attack of the Dwarfs, but here, Wardancers are going to get a little bit of an engagement. I say a little bit of an engagement. The Slayers are also an ideal target for the Sword Dancers here to go after. Obviously, stats are very comparable between Slayers and Wardancers, but the anti-infantry bonus makes that very clearly in the Wardancers' favor. If we look here, Slayers, I don't know if I can actually get their card while they're all angry brawling like this, but yeah. Gotta love Slayers fighting Wardancers. Just, you know, what is armor even? Anyway. The artillery crews, likewise, very low armor, can be cleaned up super quickly. You can see here that, yeah, again, just shattering these units, chasing them off. At this point, balance of powers slightly in favor of the Wood Elves, despite the fact the Ancient Tree Man got absolutely blasted. His tree is somewhere around here. Oh, yeah, there he is. But we'll see. This other Tree Man providing a really nice anchor point right here. Still a handful of Wild Riders running around. And again, Wardancers chasing, mopping up. You can see that balance power start to claw back a little bit, though. Wardancers can only be in so many places at once. Definitely need to get back to this engagement. This one ended up, it got a pretty good engagement there, but once the Longbeards turn around and fight and sustain combat, you see the Wardancers really just can't stand up to that. I mean, They have 38 melee defense, which against only 30 melee attack of the Longbeards is pretty good, but the low armor means any hits they do take are going to be pretty hurtful. I mean, physical resistance helps a little bit, but they just have low HP per model in general. Armor of the Longbeards means they won't make great contact against them. With their attack plus anti-infantry bonus, probably have a decent hit chance against Longbeards, but it's not great. Like, I think it's probably the base hit chance. There, they use Shadow's Coil to actually increase their melee defense, try and hold in this fight a little bit longer. Nice play there by the Wood Elves player. You don't often see people actually using those dances, but here it does allow these Wardancers to actually hold in this engagement for a really decent amount of time. These Eternal Guards can now come in and rear charge the Longbeards there, help support that engagement. Again, though, Rangers, well, these are actually Quarrelers, okay. Still, I mean, they have armor, but really only do so much against a very healthy unit of Wardancers like this. Still 65 unit models in the late game here. It means they have a lot of presence to clean stuff up. Tree was taking some access to the side, didn't like that, so got on these Ulthuar's Raiders. And things are once again looking decent for the Wood Elves. Gotta be careful though, these cannon crews are coming back, organ guns as well, and if the Dwarf player can get back, re-secure those, remount them, could be potentially very, very dangerous. I mean, besides this Wardancer, the Eternal Guard, and the Treeman, basically everything else is gone. Still on with that Shadow's Coil though, and I'm so surprised, man. I say Wardancers are very squishy. In a situation like this, where they're fighting in a prolonged combat, they're not going to take any charges, you know, not going to face shooting units, then actually they can be deceptively tanky. Very surprised how long this unit of Wardancers was able to hang in, and the rear attack from the Eternal Guards wasn't quite enough to swing it, but it was enough to deal some pretty significant damage. And like here, these Slayers come in to fight the tree. Here are the Wardancers to support. So the dual-wielding DPS infantry in general is a little bit situational to use oftentimes. Like, you really got to think, like, what units specifically am I taking these to deal with? Like here, the very specific case of Rangers plus Slayers means there's a definite argument to be made in this matchup for those kind of dual-wield DPS infantry, but Wardancers on the more expensive side of that unit class, and because they're so squishy, they're one of the most difficult to use of a unit class that's already generally kind of difficult to use. It's interesting. Definitely, I don't want to give away too much, but there are only a few units in this class which you'll see like more regularly. Oh man, the cannon does actually get online, blasts the Treeman here. As soon as the Wardancers notice, they're like, no way, no way. Oh man, just immediately chopping limbs from these Dwarf artillery crewmen. Absolute brutality. Against other factions, like potentially Coast is one. You guys have seen me use Plague Monks before against Coast, and they can definitely chew through zombies pretty quickly. The issue is, again though, and we'll kind of do some comparisons to some other DPS type units, Wardancers are flimsy in comparison. They also cost a bit more than many others. The leadership is great. The speed is fantastic. You can see here they're easily outrunning these Longbeards, no problem. The Longbeards are even exhausted, I guess both exhausted, so kind of a net zero, but there's no chance whatsoever catching those Wardancers, and what that means is they can outmaneuver the Longbeards, then commit in, fight these Eternal Guards, and it allows a beautiful, clean rear charge opportunity. Wardancers also decent charge bonus for infantry, and infantry charge bonus doesn't need much to be effective. Like 24 is pretty solid. Means they're hitting for what, like 60 weapon strength all said and done? On the charge at least, so pretty decent stuff. Kind of using them not in a direct frontline role, but almost in like a flanker role here against the Dwarfs. Was pretty solid. Likewise against, like I said, against Coast. Because Hound units actually count as infantry, you can take a Wardancer to be a surprise pick to help counter, I guess it doesn't have to be Coast, could be Vampire counts, could be, Chaos or Beastmen even, if they take a lot of Hound units. But you can counter them on the flanks there. Whoops, kind of just skipped past that, but Wardancers had a bunch of kills. As you saw, hopefully, you can go pause real quick, look back, but anyway. If we kind of talk about this, I've already talked about Plague Monks. Still need to touch on a few others, but Wardancers, if we just look at the HP stat, which is obviously very important, 5,000 HP is pretty low. One comparison we can make to the High Elves is Rangers. Now, Rangers are a little bit cheaper. They have a full-on 90 unit models, though, and not that much more HP, interestingly enough. They have more armor. Wardancers just better stats all around, though, as you would expect. And they also have immune to psychology, and again, this little Shadow's Coil, which that's maybe the first time I've seen it used to really good effect. But is that actually worth the extra 200 points? It's hard to say. Given the Elves' problem is generally cost effectiveness, I err on the side of being cheaper with more models. Definitely think that Rangers are overall a better unit, but we do a more, maybe a more direct cost comparison, like with, say, Plague Monks. Plague Monks obviously have a lot more unit models, just something to consider. 90 compared to just 75. I guess it's not that much more, but look at the difference in HP there. Plague Monks also have physical resistance, right? Again, Wardancers, just better stats all around. Not that much better in terms of leadership. That Frenzy evens things out a little bit as well. Plague Monks, of course, being 50 cheaper. They are slower, while Strength in numbers is active. But they get even faster while Scurry Away is active. And, yeah, the extra HP means they end up tanking out quite a bit better. I do think Wardancers are better than Forsaken, but probably just as situational. So, yeah, in terms of use cases, like I said, against various types of Hound units, everything except Norscan Ice Wolves counts as infantry size, right? So you can use it on the flanks, counter there. On certain maps, too, like great usage of terrain, honestly, there. Sorry, voice is kind of going out. To keep them protected from a lot of the missile fire. Basically, their biggest vulnerabilities is getting charged and getting shot, which is true of a lot of these DPS units. These guys in particular, these girls in particular, I guess I should say, because of that low HP, it's an issue for sure. Even like if you get swarmed from multiple directions by like even 2 Hound units, can potentially be a problem in the right situation. But with support, or as a support unit, I definitely think that they do have a role. And Skaven, of course, another matchup where they can do very well, although mortars mortars are nasty against them. I don't know. What do you guys think down in the comments below? I've covered, I guess, Flagellants you could also class in this sort of dual wield DPS. But I don't know. In general, I'm not the biggest fan of this unit class. 1 or 2 in the right situation can be very strong, but they're very situational. What do you guys think? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoy. Again, if you like this content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.